Imagine being the daughter of one of the greatest rappers in hip-hop history, and growing up knowing your father left behind a legacy worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That is the extraordinary position Tiana Wallace occupies today. Tiana is the daughter of Christopher Wallace, better known around the world as the Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls. Biggie was tragically murdered in Los Angeles in 1997 at just 24 years old. At the time, nobody could have predicted just how valuable his name would eventually become. His albums continued selling, his songs became timeless classics, and his image became one of the most recognizable symbols in hip-hop. Over the years, royalties, licensing deals, merchandise, publishing rights, documentaries, and other business ventures continued generating money from his catalog. Reports have placed the value of Biggie's broader estate at well over $100 million, with some transactions putting its value around or above $200 million. But there is an important detail many people misunderstand. Tiana did not simply receive a $200 million check. Biggie's fortune involves intellectual property, trusts, business interests, royalties, and estate management structures. After the death of Biggie's mother, Valletta Wallace, the future management of his legacy became even more significant. Today, Tiana stands at the center of a family legacy that continues producing enormous cultural and financial value decades after Biggie's death. Tiana Wallace was born in 1993, just a few years before her father's tragic death. That means she never had the opportunity to know Biggie as an adult. Instead, she grew up with stories about him, photographs, music, family memories, and the enormous reputation he left behind. For millions of fans, Biggie is a legendary rapper. But for Tiana, he was simply her father. That difference has shaped the way she has approached his legacy. Rather than depending entirely on the Wallace name, she pursued her own education and entrepreneurial ambitions. She studied business at Penn State and later created Notorious, a fashion brand inspired by her father. The brand allowed her to combine fashion, hip-hop culture, and Biggie's unmistakable identity. She eventually opened a physical store in Brooklyn, the city that played such an important role in her father's story. Her business journey showed that she wanted to do more than simply inherit wealth. She wanted to build something herself. That decision is especially significant because being the child of a global icon comes with enormous pressure. Every business move can be compared with the parent's achievements. Every public appearance can attract attention. And every mistake can become a headline. Yet Tiana has continued developing her own identity while protecting the memory of the man whose music changed hip-hop forever. Tiana Wallace's story becomes even more interesting when you look at how she has transformed Biggie's legacy into modern business opportunities. Her Notorious clothing brand was one of the clearest examples. Instead of treating her father's name simply as something inherited, she turned it into a fashion and cultural brand that connected directly with fans. People who grew up listening to Biggie could purchase clothing connected to his image, while younger fans could discover his story through a completely different medium. Tiana also became involved with the Biggie Experience, an immersive project designed to bring fans closer to Christopher Wallace's life, career, Brooklyn roots, and cultural influence. This demonstrates something important about celebrity estates. The real value isn't always sitting in a bank account. Sometimes the most valuable asset is the ability to keep a famous story relevant to new generations. Biggie's music already had enormous value, but his image, name, history, and cultural importance can create additional opportunities. Tiana appears to understand that better than most people. She isn't trying to become another Biggie. Instead, she is helping preserve what he created while building her own career around entrepreneurship and culture. Alongside her brother, C.J. Wallace, she represents the next generation of the Wallace family. Their challenge is enormous: protect Biggie's legacy, avoid exploiting it, and find ways to make it meaningful for people who weren't even alive when he was recording his greatest songs. The phrase, "Biggie's daughter inherited a $200 million empire," sounds dramatic, but the reality is more complicated. Biggie's estate isn't simply a giant pile of cash waiting to be divided between his children. It contains music rights, intellectual property, publishing interests, trademarks, licensing opportunities, royalties, and commercial rights associated with his name and image. That distinction is extremely important. When reports describe the estate as being worth around $200 million, they are generally referring to the value of the assets and business interests connected to Biggie's legacy, not necessarily money sitting in Teyana's personal bank account. Think of it like owning a valuable company. The company might be worth hundreds of millions, but that doesn't mean the owner has hundreds of millions in cash available to spend. Biggie's catalog can continue producing revenue whenever his music is streamed, licensed, sold, featured in projects, or used commercially. His name can also generate money through merchandise, documentaries, exhibitions, and other ventures. This makes his inheritance unusual. Teyana isn't simply receiving a traditional fortune. She is connected to an entertainment legacy that can continue generating value for decades. And because Biggie's music remains popular with both longtime fans and younger generations, the potential longevity of that legacy is enormous. The real inheritance is therefore not just money, it is ownership and responsibility connected to one of hip-hop's most valuable cultural brands. So what does Teyana Wallace's life actually look like? Surprisingly, her public image is very different from the stereotypical billionaire-heiress lifestyle. Rather than constantly showing off extravagant cars, enormous mansions, or private jets, Teyana has generally focused on entrepreneurship, fashion, family, and protecting her father's legacy. She has built businesses connected to Biggie while also establishing an identity separate from him. She is also a mother herself, meaning the Wallace legacy is now continuing into another generation. But behind the glamorous headlines, there is a serious business reality. Managing the legacy of a deceased superstar can involve complicated contracts, legal agreements, royalties, intellectual property, trustees, and family interests. After Valletta Wallace's death, questions surrounding control and management of Biggie's estate became even more important. This means Teyana's inheritance isn't simply about enjoying wealth. It can involve decisions that affect the future of music, merchandise, licensing, and the continued commercial use of her father's name. Every decision carries emotional significance because the assets being managed represent a real person and a family history. Teyana therefore occupies a unique position. She has access to one of hip-hop's most recognizable legacies, but she also has the responsibility of protecting it. Her life may involve wealth and opportunity, but it also involves expectations that few people could understand. It's how a rapper who died at only 24 created a legacy powerful enough to keep generating cultural and financial value decades later. Biggie left behind music. He left behind a brand. And now, his children are helping decide what happens next.